So let's do it.
Let's go.
Should we
Let's
jump into
into this.
big, meaty Nintendo Storytime topic for today?
So let's set the stage for this. So Nintendo Minute started in May 2013.
Yeah.
But what was really the starting point, I think, for all of this was Nintendo launching social media channels, which, you know, there had been channels established, but I think it was really the E3 of 2012, if I remember correctly.
I think you're right.
Where all that stuff launched and it became a major priority. And you were actually part of the group that did that.
That's right. So I think what the sort of the cadence was we launched Twitter, and we had a Nintendo Twitter channel, it was the earliest one, and pretty easy for the very small team of one to sort of keep up with the text and everything. But it was a pretty big discussion to launch. I think Facebook was next, and then YouTube.
Right.
Facebook was a bit of a crazy scramble because we had just so many different Facebook pages we were launching at the same time. So it was like, at that time it was like the 3DS page, like the Mario page, the Zelda page. So they were all separate. And I was in the lobby of the JW Marriott Hotel during E3 with one of our coworkers, and we were literally just like shaky hands pressing, clicking live.
Just like launching the Kit and Krysta podcast.
It was just like, here we go, here we go. And I just remember like this really surreal moment, like, okay, this is just like, again, one of those things where it's like, this is out in the world now. It's public, everyone can
deja
see
vu.
it. Yeah.
Now, I have some, I've never told you this.
Oh.
This is a never before revealed.
What?
It's actually
I knew everything about you.
It's a complaint, actually. I have a gripe.
About the social channels?
Well, so you know, we were in the public relations team at the time, but you kind of, for that E3, was like, okay, Krysta needs to work with the social media team, which didn't exist at the time.
No.
So it was just like grabbing people here and there. But it's like, Krysta's going to work a lot on this. And I did not get to join that group. I was just doing, you know,
Regular PR.
And it was like grinding yourself down, doing like booth tours and interviews.
That was tough. You're on your feet all day.
It's very hard. And every time I saw somebody come out of that social media room, they were high-fiving and patting them on the back, and they just like, oh,
jealous or what?
We're doing stuff, we're the best, we're cool, we're the hot new thing. And I was like, those jerks.
You're jealous?
I wasn't jealous, but you were a little annoying, is what
I think you were
say.
jealous. I think that is the green-eyed monster, as they call it.
Is it really that great?
I mean,
well, I mean, scant,
it was
less than 5 years later, I was in charge of it all.
That was your play all along, wasn't it?
Empire.
Oh boy, it's like the power hungry grab.
Grasp the means of production.
The reins in your hand. But yeah, when we did that, it was just like, and of course, Nintendo's a very conservative company.
Sure.
So it was like a lot of stuff that led up to it.
I think that was actually a really good way to approach it. Was not just like, oh, la-di-da, let's just jump into social media. Like, there was so much planning and thought.
Oh my gosh, so much.
And it's like, you think social media is just this easy thing to do where it's
like pretty logical.
Oh, I'm just like farting out these tweets, but it's like, no, it's actually a ton of work and planning.
There's like the back end of like how the process works to get something live is ridiculous.
So that was very wise, I think, in hindsight. So that's what started this whole thing going on. And then around the holidays of 2012, when we were launching the Wii U, the person who was actually in charge of social media at the time went on maternity leave.
That's right.
And I was chosen to kind of...
Again, there was no social media team, really.
Sit in, you know, fill that seat.
Yeah, someone just pulled somebody to help out.
And I had no idea what I was doing or what I was supposed to be doing. But everything just kind of kept going. I was like, you keep...
That sounds good. Keep tweeting that stuff. Trailers? Great. Put that on there.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Mario? Okay.
More Mario. People love that.
Lots of Mario. Let's do that.
So I was doing that for a couple months while she was out. And I guess that must have been where, you know, the seed of an idea of like, oh, you know, maybe we could have kind of be in a position to recommend some content for these channels at that time.
And the channels are pretty sparse and very like, no offense. I mean, I was working on this, so it's really, I'm offending myself, but it's like, it was kind of bland, right? Like, it was very straightforward.
Well,
like,
that's the thing about these channels. Like, it's like a roaring fire. You need to be pouring
the gasoline,
fresh content, fresh fuel. I'm shoveling coal into a locomotive, is what I'm doing.
A runaway train.
Yeah. It's crazy how much content these channels need.
They require you to just be constantly.
So again, I think that's where we started to have the root of an idea of like, oh, maybe there's something that we could make, that we could contribute in a different way that we don't have. And I remember, this was such a bad move on my part. I asked one of the people to write up this proposal. I didn't even do it myself, which is such a jerk move.
You were.
I was like, oh, I'm too busy. But I got this big idea that features me. So, but that was just like, let's get this on paper. Let's see how this looks. And I think we started just like talking to a few people about it. And before we knew it, we were like filming episode 1.
Yeah.
I guess obviously that was in May, so there was a couple months that had passed.
We did plan though. We were,
of course.
We were definitely like selling the idea in. We were giving a lot of examples of what other types of content was on these different platforms because like, again, like Nintendo was just putting very straightforward sort of like, here's
trailers or
here's a commercial. Like it was just...
And that's because that's what was available.
Exactly. We didn't have anything else.
Totally. And we had different sort of points of inspiration, I would say, for
I think
this.
so.
So like, what were yours? Because they're so different. It's so interesting, too.
Yeah, mine was definitely looking at other creators on YouTube. Like, I was like deeply ingrained, and I loved like, just seeing what other creators were, what kind of videos they were making. I loved how like raw and unscripted and just like authentic those types of videos were. I liked how like little production there was. It was just somebody that was playing a game with just shooting their reactions, and it was unedited. And I think that was what was really interesting, because on the opposite end of that was the Nintendo channel, which was very much like scripted and produced, and the professional commercials or professional
everything was perfect
trailers. And so for me, I was like, what can we do that really is a set apart from that? Right.
Yeah. And mine, I had one very big influence, which was the 1UP show, which was something that Ziff Davis, who owned 1UP and EGM and all of those gaming magazines back then, it's crazy like how ahead of its time was. Like this was like 2005, 2006.
Yeah.
And they were putting out like a weekly show that was like bringing in all of these different perspectives and personalities, and felt very fresh, but also very like this is a real show.
Like really legitimate.
Right.
Yeah.
And obviously the first episodes of Nintendo Minute were not that, but I just felt like if we just started doing it, we would get to that point.
Eventually we'll get there,
We'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
Right, was the goal.
Did we though? I don't know.
And then the other big one for me was Giant Bomb, who had started, a few years before us, and again had just kind of brought this very fresh, personal viewpoint to things.
That's the one thing that I think you and I both had in common when we were really germinating this idea for Nintendo Minute, is that we wanted it to be very personal. I think that was like the main differentiator. Like you kind of got that sense from watching the 1UP show or from Giant Bomb. I got that from watching these creators. But we were like, how can we bring like this personal touch to this very like monolithic brand, And that was really, I think, something that was at the core of Nintendo Minute that we really like started from the very beginning of the show. And I would say that we were able to carry it through for 8 years. But that was really important to both of us, I think. Right.
I think also it was so interesting. Oh, I just lost my thought.
Oh no!
Isn't it funny how that happens? line.
Desperately reading the run of show.
No, but you had that different perspective where it was like, let's do a tag video.
And that was video too.
And I was like, I don't even know what a tag video is.
Yeah.
But I think that was great that we had that kind of dual.
Yes.
If we had just come from the same point of inspiration, it probably wouldn't have been what it was.
Right. I think, we were going to talk about like the first couple of videos of Nintendo Minute, which I did look back and watch some of those. That was a little tough, by the way. It's a little rough.
Yeah.
I watched some of those this weekend before we were going to film this show, and I was like, oh my gosh. But video 2 was the tag video. Because again, I was like, we need to come up with some kind of content that's like relevant to people watching on
interactive
YouTube.
too.
And interactive, That was like very popular back in the day.
Yeah.
That is not popular now anymore. It's been a long time for the.
Well, that's good because I'm still not sure I know what a tag video is.
We're gonna tag somebody right now.
Tag your friends.
You answer these questions in the comments. Stop it.
You're it.
But then like we video 3 and like the other videos.
Are you just listing videos at this point?
No, I'm just saying like, whoa. Video 3 and 4, like the ones that we were like doing early on, where someone featured guests. Some of them featured, you know, other people from other like
we had
studios and
Capcom,
stuff.
on very early.
That's what I'm saying. Like that was probably inspired from the one-up shows.
That's kind of amazing that we got them on that early. I mean, they were literally down the street from us, but
but also like we had no credibility at all, and I have no idea why they let us put Monster Hunter, a great, amazing,
giant franchise.
Giant franchise, amazing game, and they let us like preview it on Nintendo
this
Minute.
Totally unproven thing. Yeah.
Thanks for believing in us, Capcom. You're awesome.
Right. But you know, again, also like. You talked about like, you know, we were showing this to people, we were getting, you know, people's thumbs up. Like it was not, again, the channel was so much smaller than it is now. Like now it's like, you know, 8 point whatever million people.
Yeah.
Like the expectation is different. Like the expectation is like, you're not going to ride out some rough patch while people figure it out. It's like, no, it needs to be really good.
Polished, like right up front.
We were kind of at the right place at the right time where we, you know, it was like, oh, we want to do this, but we're going to have to work out some kinks.
Yeah.
And it was okay because it was not like everybody's eyeballs were not on that channel.
Yeah. And you always talk about like how you and I sort of like grew up in that studio.
Yeah.
And like, I feel like that's what happened to the channel too. Like the channel like sort of grew up when we were growing up in the studio. So we just had like this weird like sort of like protective layer of freedom around the show where, you know, for anything else, I think the big bosses at Nintendo would probably have a lot more, they would probably want a lot more control and a lot more like ways to approve things. I mean, we didn't script anything ever.
Right.
We never shared like any outlines with anybody. We barely got like final episodes approved. Like sometimes when they were preview, like games that didn't come out, we'll send it to the developers to approve. But other than that, like when we're doing like our random like videos and stuff, no one looked at those.
Yeah, it was really just us.
We looked at it and we're like, that sounds good. Get it live.
Right.
Which I don't think they can do this at Nintendo anymore.
No,
honestly.
I mean, I think it helped that we were the like spokespeople.
Yes.
And we really, you know, earned our stripes doing those.
Yeah.
And those, you know, interviews are high pressure, tough situations where you need to think on your feet. And I think it was, you know, this is my guess. It was just like, all right, you know, they know
how to do that.
They know what the guardrails are. They know how to speak delicately about delicate topics, and it's fine. It's not something you need to worry about.
We did have trust already because we were part of the PR team before this, and
totally.
Yeah, and like you and I did some crazy like on-camera stuff before, you know.
Yeah, if
were
it was
you
like
on
you
Home
know,
Shopping Network for 8 hours.
Johnny sales rep, you know, it was like I'm going to do a YouTube show. Yeah, right, buddy.
But even so, you know, there's spokespeople still at Nintendo now. I think it's going to be tough. Like the environment's different now. Now the channel has 8 million followers as our subscribers, so it's like what are you supposed to do?
The channel's huge.
Yeah.
But some of the interesting kind of hurdles we had out of the gate was, you know, again, you talked about by the end we had like a proper production team. We didn't have that.
No.
Actually, for several years from the beginning.
Yeah.
We had the wonderful producer Stephanie.
Yeah, producer Stephanie and I went to a Final Cut Pro class in San Francisco and learned to edit. She took over the editing because I was doing so much of the on-camera stuff and more of like the production, like you and I were doing more of the production side.
Obviously we could not have done that.
Yeah.
But she was also just from the PR team, and it was just like, you want to do this cool, crazy thing? Yeah, sure.
Sure, why not?
Let's check it out.
Let's just have fun and try it out.
Yeah, but it, you know, again, just like this podcast, there was a lot of like, oh, is this working? Did I delete the footage? What happened?
Yeah,
and
is the audio, the video?
That did happen sometimes.
That did happen. Also with a Capcom video, surprisingly. Sorry, Capcom. And also
we made it up to them.
We made it up to them.
We made it up to them. We're square.
Yeah, and the crazy thing too with the first, like, I would say the first maybe like 6 to 8 months of videos is, so we would be shooting the videos at our Redwood City, California office, because that's where Yumi and producer Stephanie were that was our home office. And then we would then ship all the footage off to Redmond,
headquarters,
where they did have like a proper like AV team. And that team, again, what their focus was like making these trailers, making very like polished, produced, and they definitely knew what they were doing. There's like a proper studio there.
Well, they're amazing.
And an amazing team and a beautiful camera equipment that we're like, oh, this is expensive. And they would consult us a lot, and in the early days before we stole them for our own production. But they would consult Stephanie a lot on what to do, but they were also far away from us. And so if you needed someone Like you couldn't look over to someone's shoulder and be like, hey, can you make that edit?
I do remember some like panic phone calls though, like right before it was like
Yeah.
filming, like, how do I do this?
How do I do this?
This thing's acting up.
Yeah, and I would write editing notes. Like I would literally draft like these crazy editing notes to the team there and like say like, this is what we want the videos to feel like. Here are examples of videos like this on YouTube. Don't edit like this way, edit this way. We would like give them these crazy notes because we weren't in the office. So it was really hard to like kind of get your, I guess, your vision across a little bit in those early days. And we were trying to figure it out ourselves too, like trying to figure out our style and like how we wanted these to look. And it was just like this huge hurdle of like, just even like getting an episode out was so much legwork.
Yeah, but we'd always film it on a Monday and try and get it out. We didn't have a schedule for the first couple.
Yeah.
But it was pretty early on that we decided, let's go weekly have a video out Friday. So we'd film it on a Monday. Crazy process to get it done and get it out on a Friday.
Yeah. And we adjusted that a little bit as the show started to grow and we got
But we ended up, that was like for 7 years, like that was the schedule.
Yeah, and you know, we really decided early on. I distinctly remember this conversation with you about weekly videos.
Yeah.
Because you're like, if we want to do this for reals, everyone has, you know, the consistency is the key. You have to be on a schedule for people to keep tuning back in. And I definitely agree with you, but I was so scared to be on a weekly schedule.
Frightened?
I was really nervous because the work that we had to do to get film to live was just insurmountable at the time.
Right.
You know, it just felt like if any little thing went wrong, we were like really in some hot water.
Right.
Like, talk about the 11 p.m. on a Thursday night, you know? Like, you just need to like keep everything crossed and like, you know.
Right.
Make sure that there's no weird hiccups with all the little tiny things you had to get done.
Well, that was the other thing is like, again, this was not like a big company initiative. There was not like the Nintendo Minute Initiative, call for casting. Like there was none of that. It was like we just started doing it. So people viewed it as like, all right,
side project.
Fine, this is a little passion project for you guys. It seems to be going well. You know, you can do it, but make sure you're doing your
real job.
Quote, real job.
Make sure it doesn't interfere with your real job.
Right. So I think for us, it was like a lot of this happened like after hours. Like, I think it was, I'm
not kidding about the 11 p.m.
I don't think I ever like reviewed a video during like actual working hours.
No,
it was always like at home later because
you know what? Because the person that was editing it also had another job.
She didn't have time either.
And she was doing it after hours too. So she would like do her real job.
Yeah.
And then 5 p.m. would roll around. She's like, okay, now I have an hour or 2 hours to edit a video. So we get an edit like 8 p.m. and we review the video at like 9 p.m.
So it's kind
of
like
that was the schedule.
It's kind of underrated and crazy that at no point anybody said like, yeah, you know, this just isn't worth my time. I just want to kick my feet up and watch this reality TV instead of editing. But that never happened.
That never happened.
No.
And I think we all just realized right away how special it was. Probably. I feel like that was what kept me going all these years. I don't know about producer Stephanie. She's like, I was forced.
I think she was probably afraid of you.
Why?
You really let her have it.
I love producer. We're very good friends, actually.
So another big hurdle we had to get over early on was like, how do we show an actual game?
Oh my gosh.
Because it was early on, it was like, oh, we'll just get some footage and we'll talk over it. But it was like, no, we should play some games.
Yeah.
But we had no way to
capture the game.
And we would, again, ask those AV people, like, well, how do you do it? And they're like, well, you need this. It's like, yeah, okay, we're not getting that stuff.
And the equipment they had was like very complicated.
It's crazy.
And it was like only a professional could act. There was no Elgato, okay?
Well, eventually that's what we started to use.
We did start using that, but that was like years later. That was like 2 or 3 years
So for those first couple ones, we were just like literally filming a TV.
Oh,
we would put the camera behind us.
No, it was so awkward. I watched that video and I was cringing so hardcore. So it was like me and Kit sitting offset from the TV.
And it was like, hi guys. So today we're playing Pikmin 3.
And the TV was here. Yeah. And then the camera angle was like the worst.
There was like glare on the TV.
You can't see us or the gameplay. So like, what the heck was the point?
It was terrible.
It was so bad.
But it was the best we could do.
It was the best.
And again, the viewership, the people who were watching, like they were just happy to see these games. So nobody ever got too negative about it.
That's true. We could have done better, but no one really called us out.
Right.
And the other thing too with gameplay is like, we were really scared because again, there was some fear because gameplay was like very tightly controlled, quality controlled, for obvious reasons at Nintendo, because of course they want the games
especially before a game is out.
Yeah, they need the games to show in the best light possible, which totally makes sense. And so of course we were like, don't mess this up. Like we can't show this game in a, what if it looks glitchy or like weird because we filmed it in this like random way. So there was a lot of like just challenges there too before we had a way to capture the footage. And then of course, this was like 3DS days. There was really no good way to capture.
Yeah, it was tricky. Yeah, you needed this
this weird special capture unit thing.
Very hard to use.
It was very hard to use. There was a lot of weird cables, and it was like something that Nintendo built, like it was proprietary. So it was really, really challenging for us to do like any 3DS stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah. Wow.
And you know, again, well, the first episode was in May, which is right before E3. It's like, boy, that was really dumb to kick this thing off like right before E3 when we're so busy. And like, I mean, we'll probably talk about E3 later, but that was just like, everybody is so like heads down focused on that.
Yeah, they're not gonna have time to edit your 3DS eShop favorites video. Are you kidding me?
What were we doing?
I don't know. We were busy with E3 too.
I know. So
I don't know how we.
I really don't know.
How we decided to shoot that test episode. And then I think the second episode was E3 reactions.
Yeah,
so it did help fuel some content.
We did it after the fact.
Yeah. But we went to E3 and we came back and I think we shot the E3 video.
Right. But then, you know, so being able to play a game was a big milestone. And then I think another big milestone, and I think this is as far as we should go, is like our first developer. Like,
oh my god.
Like we had Ms. Kyogoku join to talk about
super early days.
This was like basically a year after the launch. It was before E3.
This was for Animal Crossing
New Leaf.
Yeah.
And that is a very poor video, I would say, because we had never done an interview that included translation before.
And so many guests.
Yeah. And those are just super hard to figure out, because like, how do you make a conversation not look awkward when you're like, I'm talking to you, now I'm hearing what the person's saying from you.
Yeah, and where does the translator sit? Are they in the shot? Are they gonna voice over afterwards? But yeah, we should talk about that a little bit later, because we have a lot of developer stories about when they were featured on Nintendo Minute. But the early days of that and figuring that out with a top Nintendo developer on a game, again, that was like ridiculously important and like scrutinized as Animal Crossing is. It's like, why did we this was a hard thing to do that we maybe could have like made our lives a little easier, but I don't know, I feel like we learned a lot and we wanted to do it.
I feel like, I remember we planned a lot for that, but there was so much that we just couldn't have anticipated without having done it.
Just to do it.
Yeah, but they were very good natured about it.
They were so gracious.
They were happy with how it turned out in the end.
Yeah, I think we have a really cute photo of the four of us all together. I think Mr. Iguchi was there as well.
Oh yeah, he was in it as well.
So there was two Japanese developers. It's just really complicated.
Even harder.
Yeah, really complicated.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And I think you guys might, if you look at these old videos, I don't even know, I'm encouraging you guys to look at these old videos, but if you look at these old videos.
It's fun to look. I'm not embarrassed.
I am. You'll see that the old studio was very different.
Well, it's the same room, we should say.
It was the same room. We had this little corner room at the Redwood City office that first was made into a press room, so we would do like media demos in there. And we worked on a few campaigns where we would just basically like dress up the room in the style of that game. So it was
Kirby's Epic Yarn
was the first version of that. I Am 8-Bit did all those rooms for us.
Yeah, they did all those rooms, and those
by the way,
super
they're
cool.
awesome. So it was amazing to have like these amazing artists come in and like doll up the room for us. And then the second iteration was it Majora's Mask?
It was actually just an overall Zelda room, because it definitely had the moon from Majora's Mask.
I remember the moon,
but it had
very clearly
little bits of different Zelda games.
We had like
all
Hyrule
around.
Castle behind us for like the longest time.
And the floor was like fake grass.
Fake grass.
It was very peaceful and nice to go into.
It was kind of nice.
Yeah, but it was not made for filming a show. So as we used that room more and more for that, it was like, oh, we need to change it up.
The walls were like
very
glare.
Very glary.
Had glare on it, but yeah, our old background, you might remember that from these old videos, were because we were in that press room, and we were kind of like just using the space because there was no other place to really film and stuff. So, and then of course we improved that along the way.
But now I did, I was going through my
archives,
my personal document archive, and I came across this, which was, so this was May 13th, 2013 is the date.
Yes.
And I think this was like right after the first episode had come out. And I can tell that you wrote this.
I did write this.
I know that you wrote this. And it's like, what are we doing?
I used smart art in PowerPoint. Right. I can tell by
create share-worthy content for social media. Look at that.
To drive engagement.
Yeah.
Look at these words.
It could be 2013, could be 2023. It still works. Still good.
Provide highlights of NOA news in a different, more personal way in order to foster further propagation
propagation. Look at you using that thesaurus.
This is where I like literally was like, let's put in all the marketing terms.
It's not snackable though?
It's not snackable.
That's a term that
propagation
I really don't like.
Of that information.
Of that, what information? That information. Excuse you. What else we got in here? I think you utilize YouTube specific features. That's you know.
Create YouTube trendy videos such as haul or tag videos. We did a lot of.
You know us. We were chasing those trends.
That's right. As an interesting, relevant way to share Nintendo news to this audience. Wow, I'm really smart.
Yeah, and then we just got oh, this video has 22,000 organic views. Jackpot!
Jackpot! First Nintendo Minute video went live on May 9th.
Yeah.
And we have stats, and
as they say.
I like this slide of all of the comments from fans.
It's good to cherry pick the best comments. Yeah, like, check this out.
Out of like the 90 comments, like the 4.
To be fair, across all of Nintendo Minute, we never had much hate in those comments.
That's true. We were really lucky.
Yes.
You guys were nice to us.
Right.
Yeah. I like this little.
Well, now you're just reading this.
I'm now reading comments. This is like my normal life now.
Put it down.
I read comments every day, and I'm reading comments from 2013 apparently. How fun that you kept this little thing.
So I think that brings us to I think that's a good place to wrap up the origin story, because if we go much further, it will not be the origin story.
That's right. This is the origin story. Right. Yeah. So that's how it started.
Yeah.
And this is how it is now.
How it started and how it's going.
That meme is dead. You can't say that
anymore.
Oh,
rats.
No.